Sup Rand'EMz, my name's Emma and I create art. Today's video is all about a not so new process that I've been wanting to try for a while and decided to try now. It's called the grid technique. So if you haven't heard of this before, it is where you draw a grid over your reference photo and then draw a grid in equal ratio, that's the important part, on your work surface. So you draw the image on the canvas, focusing on one square at a time until the entire image has been transferred. I've seen some people use this and everyone has their own way of doing it, and I'm sure I do it a different way to everybody else. But art is a personal thing and everyone does it differently, so there's no right or wrong way to do your art. There are guidelines that you could follow, but yeah, so I drew my grid. I didn't look at a ratio, I eyeballed it, and in the end it kind of made it a little wider than the reference, but not wide enough that it ruined it, which was good. So next time I'll make sure that the actual ratio is the same and not just the same amount of squares, if that makes sense. So if you haven't noticed, I'm drawing a picture of my son in pop art style. I took a photo of him and then put that into an app called Poster Pop Art on Android. I just looked it up in the Play Store and picked one, and it worked out really well. Let me choose the colors that I wanted to do the painting in, and then I'll also put up a reference picture so you can see what I'm trying to replicate if it isn't on the screen already. So with the sketching phase, I did focus on square by square, but more in a way that it followed into one another. So I nearly finished the sketch when I realized that it would be faster for me to just paint straight onto the canvas. But in the end, I was kind of happy that I actually had the sketch there, and I probably should have finished the sketch in the first place, but it was a learning process. So I started with the lightest color first, yellow, as it's easy to paint over with the other layers if I don't do them in the right place. I'm also using water-based acrylic paint of various brands that I just had around my house already. I go back and forth from reference to the painting and often count my way across the squares to make sure that I'm on the right one, and if I'm making a new line or a new detail, I make sure that I look from one to the other to make sure I'm in the right place. So for this particular style of painting, I blocked in all of the colours before moving on to the details. Well, not really the details, but like the smaller sections that gave the picture shape. It did require a few coats to give it the actual colour that I wanted, and I was silly and used blue pencil for the grid in the background, which means that, what colour did I put over it? Yellow. Therefore, the lines smudged a little into green lines and they were quite hard to cover up in the end, but I did a fair few layers on it and I'm happy with the coverage now. Doing a painting like this was pretty satisfying because it allowed me to still be creative while creating something that looked exactly like a reference picture, so it turned out exactly the way that I wanted it to. I know a lot of people say that this method, like the grid technique or the grid method, can be cheating, but I honestly don't think that it is cheating. I think that it's an excellent way to help creators create the art that you want to do. It's also great for practice, and you shouldn't feel like you're cheating if you're using this method at all. Everyone's brains work differently too, so I know that like I chop and change between squares. I don't focus directly on one square at a time, which I know some people do. When they do it, they do their full sketch, line it, and then colour it all in one square before moving on to the next square, which I mean I could try that one day, but I just don't know that it would all join nicely for myself. But that's just how I work. So I just use the process to benefit me in the way that I needed it, which is what you should do with all art guidelines in my opinion. But yeah, I'm super happy with the way that this turned out and would definitely try it again, maybe with a more complicated piece or less abstract one. But if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below in the comments and I will be sure to respond. If you haven't already, please subscribe and check out my Twitch channel if you're interested in watching live streams of art or games. And I would like to give a huge shout out to my patrons for their continued support. Thank you Justin, Ali Productions, Pat, Marco and Jeremy, and thank you everyone for watching my video. I will see you in the next one. Bye!